We're looking for someone who might be working here. Thelma Timepiece.
Oh, yes, Thelma. Sorry, Batman, you can't win them all. She quit last week. I think she went back to her hometown in the Midwest. But I'd be glad to take your order.
I am a little hungry.
Of course, Robin. Even crime fighters must eat.
There was a time when Batman didn't need darkness, heavy dialogue, or a traumatic past to become Gotham's hero. All he needed was a cape, a few bizarre gadgets, and a giant BAM flashing across the screen. When Batman premiered on ABC in 1966, audiences entered a completely different kind of superhero world. Gotham was colorful, ridiculous, and strangely irresistible. A place where criminals plotted inside crooked hideouts. Robin constantly fired off unforgettable exclamations. And Adam West's Batman somehow remained completely serious, even in the most absurd situations. That contrast helped turn the series into a cultural phenomenon that ran from 1966 to 1968. Behind the bright colors, comic book punches, and eccentric villains were countless unbelievable stories from behind the scenes. In today's video, we're uncovering 20 weird facts about Batman 1966 that even longtime fans may not know. And don't leave before number 20, because Adam West's famous dance was reportedly created just minutes before the cameras started rolling. Number 1. Batman almost had a very different face. Before Adam West officially put on the Bat mask, the production crew considered another name extremely seriously: Lyle Waggoner. He was not merely on the short list, but had even completed a screen test and stood very close to the title of The Dark Knight. Looking at it objectively, choosing Waggoner made total sense. With a tall physique, handsome looks, and a chiseled jawline, he looked as if he had walked right off the comic book pages. The Bruce Wayne version, through his acting, was full of craziness, standards, and sincerity. But ironically, the script went in a completely opposite direction, and that was the exact punchline. The producers gradually realized this work did not need a textbook hero. They needed an actor who could play it straight with total earnestness. Someone who could stand decently in the middle of a pop art chaos while keeping a straight face. And Adam West was the perfect piece for that gap. West did not just play Batman with simple seriousness, he turned it into a subtle satire. He delivered absurdly unbelievable lines in a majestic, nonchalant voice, as if explaining tax laws.
No matter, Robin. This money goes toward building better roads. We all must do our part.
Absolute conviction, completely devoid of irony. The absurdity thereby became extremely convincing. The decisive push came from an unexpected angle: a Nestlé Quick commercial. When producer William Dozier saw West playing Captain Q, parodying James Bond, he immediately realized the secret formula. West possessed the ability to spoof serious tropes while keeping the character's essence fully intact. As for Waggoner, missing out on the role of Batman did not discourage him at all. He quickly became a familiar face for 7 years on The Carol Burnett Show, solidifying a firm spot in comedy. And as an interesting twist of fate, he still crossed paths with the DC Universe. Not in Gotham City, but as Steve Trevor in Wonder Woman. Number 2. Those pow and zap words were a carefully calculated chaos. The colorful words describing brawl scenes exploding across the screen were all selected, weighed, and constantly changed like a fashion collection made specifically for punches. This work introduced more than 80 completely distinct sound effect fonts. Although POW or ZAP were familiar choices, the production team still wove in quite a few unique, one-time only words to maintain the weirdness of the series. Swap, kersploosh, thwack. The appearance of these words originated from a very practical reason. The ABC network once worried that the scuffle scenes would be too violent for young children. Therefore, instead of cutting action scenes, the crew overlaid comic book-style sound effects on top of them. Suddenly, the punches no longer gave a violent feeling, but transformed into pop art works, still collisions, but dressed in an extremely civilized artistic coat. The color combinations were also calculated carefully. Brilliant red, yellow, and blue color blocks fully reflected the explosion of pop art in the mid-1960s, heavily bearing the signature style of famous artists like Roy Lichtenstein or Andy Warhol. Each brawl thus became a moving comic book frame, lively enough to make the audience forget the reality that Batman and Robin were clearly punching thin air. These graphic effects were all inserted only in post-production. When filming, Adam West and Burt Ward had to constantly swing their arms in the air, self-adjusting their movement pace and reactions to be precise, and then completely trust that the post-production department would place the right bomb word in the right position afterward. Number 3. Joker insisted on not shaving his mustache, and Batman just had to accept it. At the time Cesar Romero agreed to transform into the Joker in the 1966 Batman film, he made only one single prerequisite condition: keep his mustache intact. As a nostalgic Hollywood actor, Romero deeply cherished his Latin lover image, along with his trademark mustache. Shaving was completely impossible, even if it was for a clown, a comic book villain, or even Batman. The crew had to choose the most viable option: put makeup over it. The makeup team applied a very thick layer of white grease paint directly over the mustache, expecting the studio lights along with the limited display quality of 1960s televisions to hide these traces. That solution seemed to succeed. Through the old television screens, the mustache almost sank beneath the emitted light. But when rewatching on today's sharp Blu-ray releases, this magic trick completely failed. Every single mustache hair was clearly exposed, creating a bizarre shadow surrounding the Joker's smile. That refusal to compromise instead brought about a very interesting result. And the wonderful thing was that no one felt annoyed. The crew did not reshoot at all, but embraced this detail. The Joker, a character who already represented madness and eccentricity, did not even bother to shave properly. This incident accidentally fitted in perfectly with the tone of the movie. In other works, this would be a production disaster, but specifically for Batman, it turned into a very impressive touch. Number 4. Robin was basically the human crash test dummy of the series. Burt Ward took on the role of his own stunt double. Falls, fights, chases, whenever there was a scene involving being thrown around, burned, or crashing straight into the set, chances were high that Burt Ward performed it himself. Adam West had seasoned stuntman Hubie Kearns to shoulder the burden, while Ward received the honor of taking those hits himself, time after time. The results were undeniably brutal. Ward suffered continuous injuries. More accurately, the studio was the one having trouble. The stunt double hired for Robin could not even meet the standards of the television executives back then. Ward later recalled that in the very first week of filming, he had to lie in the emergency room for 4 out of 5 days. Right in the first episode, the Batmobile made a sharp turn, the door flew open, and Ward was thrown straight onto the road like a product testing volunteer. Those grand atomic turbine scenes with sparks and explosions were all real, and they frequently singed both Ward's jacket and skin. Once, while filming a scene crashing through a breakaway sign, the sign refused to break. On the contrary, only Ward suffered broken bones. The impact chipped his tooth and bruised his ribs. Despite all of that, the production crew kept right on filming. Ward later joked that the studio's long-term plan seemed to be seeing whether they could finish him before the season ended. So now, looking back at his wide-eyed, bewildered stares and his enthusiastic "Holy Batman" exclamations, it naturally carries a very different feeling. The boy wonder fully deserved every single one of those battle scars. Number 5. The Batmobile was actually a supercar worth $1. The Batmobile did not start off as a crime-fighting masterpiece, but rather it began as the 1955 Lincoln Futura, a forgotten concept car. This was a test display car that the Ford company no longer wanted, could not use, and regarded as a piece of washed-up scrap metal. Seeing this, custom car legend George Barris bought it for exactly $1, and then the panic began from there. Initially, Barris planned to build a completely new one from scratch, but the studio gave a very tight deadline. Exactly 3 weeks. 21 days to create a superhero car for a television show that had not even aired yet. Starting from zero was impossible, so Barris looked at the giant fins and the bubble canopy of the Futura and decided to make it full-on bizarre. The car model born out of that crazy sprint later became one of the most recognizable cars on television. Painted jet black, trimmed in red, plastered with all kinds of Batman themes, It looked like it could run very fast, but in reality, that was not the case at all. Due to its heavy steel body, an engine that constantly overheated, and frequent tire blowouts, the car only reached a safe maximum speed of around 45 miles per hour. Those high-speed chase scenes were mostly thanks to camera tricks, post-production editing, and Adam West having to pretend that this car could run faster than traffic on the road. Even so, none of that mattered at all. The Batmobile did not need to run fast, it only needed to look impressive. It defined the look for the entire series and became a legend, just like the Batman suit itself. Number 6. Robin came up with those holy exclamations right on the spot. Those legendary holy something exclamations originally stem from the writer's room. The formula was extremely simple. Trouble strikes, Batman remains calm as ever, while Robin freaks out with a holy and inserts an absurd noun after it.
Holy ashtray! Holy haberdashery! Holy popcorn! Holy flypaper!
However, even though the writers were the ones who birthed this running gag, it was Burt Ward who elevated it even further. He was encouraged by the crew to improvise his own variations right on set, coming up with anything that sounded naive, innocent, and catchy, as long as it fit to the image of the boy wonder, frantically embracing danger with absolute enthusiasm. Thanks to that, the show birthed iconic lines like holy ravioli, holy hole in a donut, along with a series of increasingly bizarre associations with food, mathematics, and vocabulary. Although a few lines were already in the script, many scenes were created freely by Ward right before the camera rolled. This spontaneous combination kept the dialogue feeling fresh every time. Even Ward himself sometimes could not predict which holy word would slip out of his mouth until he actually said it. It became one of the most reliable comedic elements of the series. Batman could keep a cool head, the villains could plot and scheme, while Robin would turn every crisis into a wordy firework display. Half scripted and half whatever popped into his head. Number 7. NBC wanted to rescue Batman until someone used a bulldozer to flatten the Batcave. After ABC decided to stop broadcasting in 1968, this TV series actually had not stopped completely. Behind the scenes, there used to be a very big hope that another network would step up to take over. In a short moment, NBC seemed to be ready to play the hero. But then, the Batcave suddenly disappeared. After the cancellation order, the producers carried out the familiar process when believing that the work had ended forever. They waited patiently for a short time. When no takeover offer appeared immediately, they made a ruthless decision: bring in a bulldozer to flatten the entire set. The Batcave, Wayne Manor were all turned into a heap of ruins. Only 2 weeks later did NBC officially drop a hint. That is right, a mere 2 weeks, NBC was said to have planned to bring Batman back for a 4th season. Even so, when knowing that the set system was completely destroyed, the executives started doing the cost math. Rebuilding the Batcave already cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. Not to mention the cost of recreating Wayne Manor was even more expensive. All of a sudden, saving Batman was no longer an interesting nostalgia story, but became a terribly money-draining construction project. NBC withdrew immediately. The failed rescue deal was not because the audience turned their backs, nor because the cast dropped their roles, but because someone had acted too fast with a bulldozer. Both Adam West and Burt Ward later admitted they could not believe the studio cleared out the physical world of the series that fast, completely slamming shut the opportunity to step into the future. In the end, the Dark Knight did not fall to any supervillain at all. He was defeated by a bad time decision along with an overly enthusiastic demolition crew. Imagine if Batman of 1966 accidentally time-traveled to encounter Robert Pattinson's Dark Batman. What would happen? Drop your most badass script right in the comments section below. Number 8. Riddler almost disappeared just because of a paycheck. Frank Gorshin completely owned the role of Riddler in the 1966 Batman series. He was restless, hysterical, and possessed a laugh like someone who had just downed 6 shots of espresso and then discovered committing crimes. He quickly became one of the most beloved villains and a major reason why audiences continuously tuned in. Therefore, after season 1, Gorshin's agent did what agents usually do. demand a raise. According to reports, the demand was an increase from $3,500 USD to $5,000 USD per appearance. The producers immediately refused outright. Instead of giving in, the show tried an extremely bold move. They took a script originally written for Riddler and hastily reworked it into a brand new villain named the Puzzler, played by Maurice Evans. Same riddles, same energy, same concept, only the name was different, but the audience was not easily fooled.
Hey, bro, come on now, dawg. Come on, man.
Ratings dropped and fans continuously complained. This substitution yielded disappointing results, no different than a Batman gadget nobody asked for. John Astin also once took on the role of Riddler in a two-part story arc during Gorshin's absence.
And then we'll talk about the money you took from the poor and needy.
No, we don't, Boy Wonder. Because you and your deputized friend are going to watch me walk out of here.
In the end, reality won out. Gorshin and the studio reached an agreement, and he returned in season 3 for one final episode titled Ring Around the Riddler. That was a victory lap, a peace offering, and a quiet acknowledgement that you could not find a second version that perfect, especially when that person was laughing fanatically in a green outfit. The Batman crew learned a costly lesson. You can change the villain's name, you can rewrite the script, but you cannot use budget math to replace a brilliant talent. Number 9. The villains were literally film tilted. Good and evil in this show were not defined by dialogue or costumes, but by geometry. When the camera suddenly tilted completely as if it had drunk a bit too many martinis, that could only mean one thing: the villain's lair. These random tilted camera angles, also known as Dutch angles, were not some subtle filmmaking technique. They were more like visual comedy. The villains were already crooked, so the show just filmed them tilted like that. The visual metaphor here was completely transparent without even trying to hide, and this rule was fixed. Wayne Manor always remained perfectly balanced. Gotham Police Department stood straight as an arrow. But as soon as you cut to a lair packed with giant props, henchmen wearing color-coordinated outfits, with a leader in a bizarre costume, the camera tilted so hard it actually needed a seatbelt. And these tilt angles were not random at all. A few villains even had their own signature degree of tilt, subtly adjusting the frame to match their own unique brand of madness. Same city, same show, just different levels of crookedness. It was also a subtle nod to comic books. Those tilted frames mimicked the dynamic comic book panels of the pop art era, turning every villain scene into a living book page. Both stylish and silly, right on brand for the show. Number 10. Batman almost did not make it onto television. Before officially airing, the Batman series received test screening results so terrible that it made ABC executives secretly panic. Audiences participating in the screening were handed dials to rate their emotions in real time. Initially, there was a control film, an episode of the Mr. Magoo cartoon. The dials continuously scored higher. Everyone seemed happy. But when Batman started playing, the index immediately plummeted. Viewers felt confused because they could not digest the tone of the show at all. The first episode only scored somewhere in the low 40s. For easy comparison, surviving shows usually scored in the mid-60s. This was one of the lowest audience test scores in ABC history. The management back then was firmly convinced they were holding a painful and extremely expensive flop. Normally, a show like that would be quietly killed off. But Batman was caught in a major dilemma. It was too expensive to abandon. ABC had already poured a huge sum of money into sets, costumes, and massive marketing campaigns. Canceling the series meant taking the full brunt of a massive financial loss. Therefore, instead of pulling the plug, the network had to choose the only remaining option: put it on the air and pray for a miracle. Then January 12, 1966 arrived, and the situation reversed immediately. Once the audience accessed the series in its proper context, accompanied by well-structured media coverage, and understood that this was a work intentionally done in a satirical style, Batman completely blew up. More than half of the households in the United States tuned in to watch, taking up a viewership share of up to 51%. Basically, the entire country back then was glued together to those pow and zap word bubble effects. Batman survived not thanks to the trust of executives, but because it was too bizarre, too expensive, and had gone too far to turn back. Sometimes television history is made in such a spontaneous way. Number 11. The utility belt was an ongoing joke that lasted for years. In the 1966 Batman series, the utility belt had nothing to do with practical usefulness, but rather it represented absolute devotion.
The Clown Prince of Crime have found the answer to it.
What is it, Joker?
My own utility belt.
That was the steadfast belief that Batman always anticipated every worst-case scenario, even the disasters that the writing staff had only come up with 5 minutes before the cameras rolled. Everyone remembers this belt for being famous for containing the Bat Shark repellent spray, because obviously the top threats in Gotham were aerial crime and killer sharks. But that was only the tip of the iceberg. Beneath those pouches were hidden treasures like bat tweezers, a multi-purpose bat fly swatter, and even a thermos of bat alphabet soup. Because indeed, nothing struck terror into criminals quite like knowing Batman always had a hot lunch packed and ready. For this running gag to hit maximum effectiveness, the writers put the bat label on literally everything. An ordinary item was not enough. It had to be thoroughly bat branded. Of course, a few of these ideas originally stemmed from the comic books. Batman had used shark repellent since 1958, but the screen version pushed the absurdity to its absolute peak. Meticulous preparation back then was no longer a superpower, but transformed into a comedy routine. Batman was not merely hunting down criminals, he was predicting them in an extreme way. Number 12. Batgirl was added to rescue Batman. By 1967, the allure of the Batmania craze began to cool down, making ABC very restless. The Batman series retained its loud, vibrant, and absurd nature, but the era when this show could make the whole of America set aside everything to watch was gradually slipping into the past. The TV network issued a clear demand: either change or stop broadcasting completely. Under that pressure, the producers had to cling to a familiar television industry option, adding the Batgirl character. Yvonne Craig officially joined in season 3, transforming into the crime-fighting version of Barbara Gordon full of personality.
Batman and Robin take in a new partner. Introducing Yvonne Craig as Batgirl.
This move was aimed straight at the young female audience segment, while simultaneously shattering complaints that the series was nothing more than an exclusive male space filled with gadgets. This new character was smart, capable, independent, and standardly shaped as a positive female role model. To convince the network, the production crew even prepared an 8-minute presentation tape specifically for ABC executives to prove that Batgirl could coordinate seamlessly with Batman and Robin. The pitch was successful, helping the series get renewed for one final season. Even so, television industry irony appeared right after that. Although the initial intention was to attract female viewers, Batgirl's tight purple suit, her impressive motorcycle entrances, along with Craig's fluid style from her ballet dancer background, created results completely outside of expectations. Male viewership suddenly skyrocketed. Dads immediately sat glued to the screen. Seeing this, the TV network stayed silent and asked no further questions. Batgirl could not sustain Batman forever, but she proved a reality. Improvisational television solutions sometimes still yield results. It just does not happen according to the exact script anyone calculated. Number 13. Every guest villain received the exact same pay. In the 1966 Batman series, popularity did not mean you would get a beefier paycheck. As long as your name was announced in the special guest villain slot, the pay rate was immediately locked in.
With Batman and Robin on vacation.
Chantel, love.
This deal was extremely concise. Every guest villain was paid $1,250 USD for a half-hour episode. Since Batman always kept the habit of dragging cliffhangers from Wednesday over to Thursday, they would pocket a full $2,500 USD for a complete 2-part story arc. Same number, same contract, and zero negotiation. The most interesting detail lay in the fact that this fixed price applied to everyone, regardless of whether you were a supporting actor looking for a foothold or already a legend of grand stature. Illustrious names like Vincent Price, Liberace, or Eli Wallach received the exact same amount of money when clashing with the superhero duo. Whether an Oscar nominee, a lounge singer, or a prestigious silver screen star, they were financially equal the moment they set foot in Gotham. This uniformity was completely within the crew's calculations. The production side aimed to rotate the villain lineup continuously, preventing the series from getting trapped by demands for sky-high pay. If you wanted to appear in the show, you had no choice but to agree to that pay rate, put on a bizarre costume, and give it your all. You could run wild across Gotham, but when it came to the contract, interference was absolutely out of the question. Number 14. The Batusi dance was never in the script. Alright, we saved this detail for the final spot because it fully reflects every bizarre and brilliant aspect of the show. The Batusi, the dance that spawned thousands of future parodies, never appeared on a single page of the script. No writer suggested it, nor did any choreographer stage it. Adam West came up with the entire performance himself, according to some reports just about 10 minutes before the cameras rolled. According to West, the inspiration came from magazine photos, along with dances he had seen in clubs. During the rehearsal, he started experimenting with silly, exaggerated movements, raising 2 fingers to frame his eyes like a masked go-go dancer who accidentally wandered into crime fighting. The production team could have blown the whistle to stop it, but they chose to let him fly free. The name Batusi was a play on words from the Watusi, an extremely popular dance in the 1960s, which made the scene even more impressive. Audiences caught the comedic rhythm immediately. The world's greatest detective, poker-faced and deadly serious, was executing dance moves as if he had accidentally stumbled into a party, but refused to leave. Decades pass, and the Batusi has never cooled down. Pulp Fiction paid homage to it, The Simpsons parodied it, and it became an icon of a superhero doing something absurd in a truly glorious way. Adam West simply improvised a goofy dance, but somehow it became immortal. That is the true power of giving your absolute all to a role. Number 15. The narrator was actually the producer the entire time. That narrator in Batman who sounded as if the world was coming to an end every 30 seconds.
Has the diabolical Mr. Freeze outwitted the dynamic duo after all?
Was not an expensive announcer overacting, but rather the very person who signed the paychecks. Executive producer William Dozier was once helpless in finding a voice actor who could hit the exact tone he expected. He held auditions for a series of professional voice actors with extremely impressive resumes. They performed very well technically, but that was precisely the obstacle. According to Dozier, they performed too well. He once famously said that none of them met the requirement simply because they could not stand delivering a voice with that level of absurdity. In the end, he had no choice but to step into the recording booth himself. Dozier stood before the microphone and delivered the narration in a breathless style, pushing the drama to its peak, turning every scene into a national emergency.
Is this the ghastly end of our dynamic duo? Answers tomorrow night, same time, same channel.
He even used the stage name Desmond Doomsday to hide his identity. This name once appeared on the Batman soundtrack album alongside internal production documents, while Dozier still pretended he was uninvolved. Things did not stop there. He continued bringing that exact voice over to the Green Hornet, the work that helped broadcast Bruce Lee's name into American households nationwide. Still that same tone, still that same urgency and rush. The man who once could not find anyone willing to deliver a calculatedly absurd voice ended up becoming the iconic voice of all of Gotham. A gloomy Batman or a Batman doing the Bardo dance and spraying shark repellent? Which team are you on? Comment 1966 right now if you love this silliness, or 2026 if you are loyal only to the modern dark version. These 20 facts are just the tip of the iceberg. If you do not want to miss the next Hidden Cinema Case files, click subscribe and turn on the bell right now. The algorithm will not automatically suggest good videos for you. Press the button right away. Thank you for watching. See you in the next video.